Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L and welcome to my Villain Academia chapter 220. Oh wow, hey guys, so here we are, the next chapter. All I'm going to say is that we're still dealing with copyright strikes, but I think today we'll get one of them removed, hopefully, unless I get sued. So that's good. But because of that, I'm just going to err on the side of caution. We have a one image video, maybe two images depending on things, but it's going to be a pretty simple chapter because really the chapter ain't giving us character development, it's just revealing things to us and just showing us the state of a situation. For instance, when I say that, I mean when you look at the main villain characters, they didn't get anything new added to their personas. They're just dealing with situations and things get revealed for Spinner. Not really character development, more like character exposition, but because of that, you know, easier to talk about. So I do have some thoughts in general, and that they range from, you know, where are we going in this arc, my current predictions, the stuff that we got with Spinner, some of the world building, and then some ideas on Giganto Machina, or what I forget what his name is. I'm just gonna Google that before we get into his part. But yeah, so let's start off with the very beginning. That is the orc if you were reading the manga stream translation, or the CRC if you were reading the J-Maney's box translation. Now I think this is one of those situations because Manga Stream pointed out in their translation notes that they're not too sure about what the actual translation is, so we'll wait for Shonen Jump to give us the official name for this organization. But the biggest thing with the church thing that we should take away is the fact that it was Spinner narrating, and the fact that there are people who actually discriminate against mutant types, and that according to J-Maney's box, mutant types are saying the word mutant is actually kind of rude. So that's pretty interesting. So when you have these moments there with the villains versus other villains, I think it's important to appreciate that the villains, or at least Shigaraki's villains, are, well, they're very inclusive. We saw this with Magne. We saw how much the villains in general respected her. And so when you have situations like this, it makes you feel good that, hey, like, yeah, they're murderers, but at least they're not racist murderers. And that's pretty much what we're getting here. That said, knowing that there isn't a committee like this in the world of Hero Academia, I'm totally fine with Shigaraki and the group destroying them. Because at this point, we just have villains versus villain combat. So, you know, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And if anything, it's a good way for the author to get us rooting for the villains. If you weren't already rooting for the villains in some capacity, when you see them fighting racists, it makes you feel kind of good. And it was also very interesting to know about Spinner a little bit. You know, Spinner's thing happens a little bit after. But with Spinner, you know, it's that whole discrimination about being a lizard and seeing that he came from a part of a country, or of Japan, I guess, where people actually were calling him that. So that was very interesting details. And also him and his love of Stain. I love that we had it explored. His exact dialogue was like interesting enough. But this is one of those points that really reiterates to me that Spinner is the most likely person that could be flipped over to like Izuku's side if he really had to flip. Now the only thing is, because of this chapter, it's introduced a hate component into him, and when I say that, it's like he might legitimately hate the world that allowed a situation for people like him to be discriminated against. Or, you know, he points it out that he came from a community with antiquated values. So, you know, it depends on how Horikoshi wants to write this and whether or not he wants Spinner to fester in the hate. But the big thing with Spinner is that he wants progress in some direction. And it's just, if you think about it, Hero Society has been around for a long time. And Hero Society hasn't been able to change cultural norms in pocket communities. So Spinner might be relatively disenfranchised with just heroes in general, because heroes can't really do anything about those like soft crimes. And when I say soft crimes, I mean like those cultural crimes, or like those societal crimes, those like really small ones, those kind of gray areas in terms of the law. Like you can't really, I imagine it's not easy for them to, I guess, get people arrested for calling someone a lizard. You guys get what I mean? It's just it's in that really weird area that I'm not sure how the jurisdiction works for the heroes. So I wouldn't be surprised if Spinner is legitimately just not, he just doesn't have faith in society. That said, with Spinner, I really think he's more of a revolutionist than a villain. So you know, I kind of wonder if he would flip to even the Destro side if these two groups come into conflict, because he's pretty much, I feel like he could be talked into any group that wants to change the world. But I'm not sure if Destro's rhetoric fits with Spinner enough to be able to make that flip happen. Regardless, I'm very happy we got that POV from him. I think Spinner's an interesting character. I think he's kind of like closed-minded in some aspects, but given that he's from the country and given just where he finds value in things, I think that just might be an issue of not being around enough good influences. So I'm very interested in where the author takes Spinner's character in the future. At this point, still a bit too early. Speaking of things happening in the future, let's talk about predictions. So one of the big problems we see when they go raid this church is that the villains are poor, and we can understand why that happened, because, well, All For One, the bank, he's gone. He's not in there. He's not giving them money anymore. So we're in a very interesting situation with the villains looking for the doctor and then also having to survive while being poor. Pretty cool stuff. Now, this does give us kind of a trajectory, because when you think about it, the villains are going to come into conflict with Destro's group, which, as we know, is run by a really, really, really rich guy. So can we already see a possible thing forming there? Now, look, I don't think Shigaraki is capable of running a company. You know, just call it a hunch. But what I'm seeing here is that if Shigaraki is going to be going through a boot camp, we're at a situation where we have the possibility that this might be Shigaraki's time to recruit enemies instead of slaughtering enemies. And what I mean by that is just pretty much, what if Shigaraki is going to try and win over Destro's group? Because if they win them over, or some aspect of the financial side of Destro's group, then Shigaraki is pretty much set with money. And then this propels the villains forward. Now, that's still relatively early, because we still have unknown factors here. We still have Gigantomachia, and we still have the Doctor. We don't know how exactly those guys work when it comes to the money funds. So again, it's still kind of early. I need to see the interaction between Shigaraki and Destro's spawn, because if we can see that, then we might have a better idea of the trajectories. The Hero Academia author is kind of good at giving you a hint at where these conflicts are going to end. Like with the case of Shizaki, you know, it was very easy to go on record and say, well, definitely there's going to be some kind of shogi metaphor when Shigaraki comes to Shizaki. Although, like, at the time, I still got things wrong when I made the prediction. Some things were still correct. So it's just one of those things where the author does give the readers enough hints. And so between me and you guys, we can probably figure out where the trajectory is going to be. And then we can talk about it as it happens. But at this point, still too early. We don't know the Doctor's finances. But I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of this arc, we have Shigaraki in some form of Destro's group working together. And there we have new finances for the villains. And again, if Shigaraki does get to recruit one of the Destro villains, it's pretty much Shigaraki succeeding in the lesson of being like All For One and having that charisma where All For One was able to gain allies. Like, this will be Shigaraki's way of gaining allies. Because, like, remember, like, Spinner kind of points it out. Like, a lot of these guys joined up with the villains after Stain. It just points that Shigaraki's still working off of Stain's charisma. He needs to fill Spinner's heart with his own visage instead of Stain's visage if he really wants to win that guy's heart and mind over. It's just, you know, we're already getting to, like, some of those inklings that we could be heading towards Shigaraki becoming more charismatic, and that's pretty cool. Okay, next thing, Gigantomachia. So this was all interesting. I love that he showed up all of a sudden. I love that he brought the doctor with him. I thought that was really funny. Cool stuff. Now, I'm just gonna start by saying I really hope Gigantomachia is not Crimson Riot. Alright? Like, it was Crimson, you know, Kirishima's idol. I just hope it's not, because let's face it, Lan, you know, Crimson Riot, or Riot Man, the main Riot, he was a manly man from what we've seen. He was also really hard-boiled, and when I see Gigantomachia and I see him saying like, I devote my everything, and then I see him crying manly tears of passion when his fellow disciples are too weak, it really makes me feel like, I hope not, but Gigantomachia might be just a mutated form of Crimson Riot, right? And it gets a little worse because if I recall, season 3 had a shot in one of the silhouette flashbacks for All For One's allies. There was a silhouette that looked like Crimson Riot in there. So I am very concerned. And the next thing is, this particular villain might already have made contact with Kirishima and Mina at some point in their flashback. So anyway, the thing here is, like, this guy has connections to those two, sort of. More with Mina, but Kirishima was a witness to it. And then, you know, with that extra detail that was added in the anime, it gets to be kinda sketchy. So I'm interested in getting more Machia, because we need to kinda see his characterization to be able to point this out. And it's just like, this guy might be a recipient of 2 or 3 quirks, because that might be what caused this weird mutation in him. You never really know at this point. But yeah, that's another thing for the future. Overall, when you look at this chapter, we pretty much end up in the exact same place we were in the last chapter, or maybe like 1 second into the future compared to the last chapter. Now, usually by nature, that isn't a good thing. Here, though, you got enough information in exchange for going back in the past, so you know it's kind of harder to knock it for that. But still, it's a very interesting, informative chapter. But the information we're getting aren't really game-changing, or isn't really game-changing information. It's just filling in the gaps, and that's pretty much like what we got. Like, in the broad strokes, we were filling in gaps with Spinner. We were filling in gaps with what the villains were doing. We were filling, well, we haven't filled in the gap in their wallet, but I assume that by the end of this arc, we're gonna have something here. Now, this chapter definitely does make me feel like we're inching closer and closer to having that villain v villain confrontation, and most likely, from the way this is looking right now, it seems like we're not going to get much hero interference in this little fight that's going to occur between these two groups. Now, mind you, we're still very early in the chapter, in the arc. We might have a full blowout where the heroes get involved, or this might be a short, maybe 16 chapter arc with just the villains. And at this point, like we know, the villains can carry things. They can carry material by themselves because they are all very loud personalities. It would be fun to watch them. Any last notes? The title page for this chapter was really good. It's cool that the doctor is talking up with Shigaraki again. That really got me thinking about things, and it was cool to see Dabi. But and also I love the Toga and Twice moment. That was pretty cool. But yeah, guys, let me know what you thought down below. And until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day. And of course, if you catch me on time, I might respond to your comments.